Go live.
There she is. Hello, Potfeet.
Did I do it right?
You did.
I got my good nerd shirt on. My different Mars Explorer shirt.
So remember to take me off of Discord and audio on Mimo.
Okay, switch it. There we go. Yep, so I've got a shirt with Sojourner, Spirit, Opportunity, Curiosity, Perseverance, and Ingenuity on it. Bart wants to know where you got these shirts.
I got
where
them.
we get all our shirts.
I don't recall. It was a website that kind of specializes
the answer's
in
random
space.
Different sites, right?
Yeah. I can find it if he wants to get one and send it to him.
Hey, I didn't see a roll call notice. Am I supposed to start roll call at this point?
Alan's there. Yeah. Alan.
Yeah, he should be there.
Where's the roll call reminder?
All right, well, I'm starting it without him. Kevin stands and waves to Lindsay. There we go. Now I can do roll call. We've got Alan and Aliha and Kevin and Bruce and Jason and Frank and Jill. Lindsay, the daughter.
Lindsay.
We just saw her today. And Mike and Rick and Sandy and Steve and Michael. And anybody coming in the sidebar there? I don't think so. No Frank today? No Rose yet.
We have a Titan bot, so someone else may be in there.
We don't know. It's hard to tell.
It is
all
hard.
Right. Well, I don't have a ton of content I'm going to record, so this is not going to be a long show.
Okay.
Yep, we had all the kids up this weekend, so I didn't do a whole lot of work. And Bart, rearranged for me so that we could record on Friday for Programming by Stealth. So we're all set.
That was a good weekend.
I think, yeah, it was a really good weekend. Had all the kiddies here. Well, I think I might go ahead and record. What do you think, Steve?
Let's go.
All right, muting Steve. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeed.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, June 27th, 2021, and this is show number 842. Well, this week I've got just 3 segments, and all 3 are fun and meaty. I did want to tell you that my most recent video tutorial is up on Screencast Online, and I think it's a really swell one. I called it 14 Tips in iOS 14. I think it's swell because it's very fast-paced, because no topic is more than 3 minutes long. You can't possibly get bored. Even if you're a master of iOS, I bet you'll find at least a few of these that you didn't know about before you watched. You can find this awesome tutorial, awesome if I do say so myself, over at screencastonline.com. Remember, there's a free 7-day trial of the Screencast Online tutorial service, during which you can watch the current back catalog. You'll get hooked because there's so many great tutors there from whom you can learn. So go check it out. I think this is one of my best. I had a lot of fun recording that one. It was so easy. Recording 3-minute bits of iOS, cakewalk. I should do those all the time. All right, so now I need I guess I should do it. Does Kevin want something?
Apparently.
Oh, you saw it, Sandy? You liked it? Good.
Alistair. Hey, Alistair.
Alistair? Hi, Alistair. Long time no see. All right, what am I doing? Preview. There we go. Okay, I need a chapter mark is what Kevin's telling me. I didn't hear a plink. What happened? Why is there no plink? Here. Nothing's happening. Shift, Control, Option, Command. Oh, it just flipped. Come on. Shift, Control, Option, Command, H. Nothing, literally nothing is happening.
Is your
it just switched.
cursor where it should be?
Hang on. That's weird. It's not making any sound. Maybe my system sounds are turned to some other device. And it took a long time. No sound effect. I'm not hearing the dink.
Huh.
And it took a long time to switch too.
Interesting.
That is really strange. Huh. What would mute that? John's here.
Hey, John.
It's packed. Standing room only. All right. I got a chapter mark. I'm going to go ahead and record. In this week's episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond, we have Bart Bouchat's back with Programming by Stealth, episode or installment, as he says, 119 of 10. No, I'm going to take that over. I keep making that same joke accidentally. It's of X. In this week's episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond, Bart Bouchat's is back with Programming by Stealth, installment 119, entitled Open Source on GitHub. GitHub. Good grief. I'm going to re-record that. Take 4. On these... Take 5. On this week's episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond, it's back with Bart Bouchat's on Programming by Stealth, installment 119 of X, and we're going to be talking about open source on GitHub. As promised, Bart takes us through the final step in our GitHub journey, learning how to contribute to an open source project. He explains 3 open source scenarios. The first is using someone else's code exactly as is. Then he talks about using their code with a few customization of your own. And finally, he goes through the most interesting scenario, customizing the code and contributing your customizations back to the project. When he gets to this final scenario, he gives us a way to practice these newly acquired skills, and it's something he's wanted to do for a long time. He's created a gallery for all Programming by Stealth listeners to contribute their work that they've done in the various challenges we worked in Programming by Stealth. If you have code from the challenges for Conway's Game of Life, the number guessing game we wrote, the currency converter, the currency grid, the world clock, or the time sharing clock, we'd love to have you contribute to the PBS gallery to show off your work. Bart explains that the GitHub pages he's created will allow us to fork his code, make our own changes, and then create what's called a pull request to get them accepted into the official PBS gallery. You can find that at gallery.pbs.bartificer.net. I worked through the whole process for one of my projects, and it was definitely a learning experience to actually do this, to contribute your code, and that, of course, is the whole point of Programming by Stealth. And if you haven't learned how to do GitHub pages yet, this is a chance to practice that. So for this episode of Chit Chat Across the Pond, of course, we have Bart's fabulous tutorial show notes over at pbs.bartificer.net. And of course, you can find this episode along with all the rest in your in your podcatcher of choice, just by looking for Programming by Stealth. Okay, that reminded me, I have something really important to do. Update index. I forgot to fix the index. Got that. Okay, it took 5 tries, but I think I got it.
Good job.
And Kevin wants something. It's not really clear what. I'm not sure.
I wish you'd be more explicit and maybe repeat it a couple times.
Why isn't it making sound? No sounds. Is Mike's here, right? Why would it stop making sounds? Why would it work but not make the noises? Any idea?
So the sound source, you have sound effects on?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
it says track system output, and system output is set to my headphones, and I'm hearing you.
But the volume for sound effects is?
It's 100%. That's a good
100%,
guess.
okay.
It is making the sounds, but you may have them off or redirected. Yeah, I would think. It's like me to have it redirected. All right, we are going to talk about Safari. All right. I am ready to record. Muting Steve. Okay. Get over here. One of the most controversial things shown at Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference, otherwise known as WWDC, was redesign of Safari. Apple I didn't think they did a really good job of explaining what problem they were trying to solve, but the interface is going to be very different from any browser we've ever used. The redesign is across all of their platforms, macOS, iOS, and iPadOS. Right now, to play with the new hotness, you have to install the developer betas of the operating system. Not only does that cost money, but it's also a very dicey thing to do with devices you depend on. Soon there will be a public beta of the operating system, so it won't cost any money, but unless you enjoy living life on the wild side, it's still not a great idea to install a beta operating system on your primary devices, even if it's a public beta. If you do have spare devices, man, all bets are off. Have a great time with the betas. But what if you don't want to take that risk, but you still want to play with Safari to decide whether you're going to hate it or maybe even like it? I've never seen them do this before, but Apple has made available the Safari Technology Preview, which you can download and run on macOS Big Sur. The cool thing is that it's a standalone app separate from the currently released version of Safari, and it even has a purple logo so you can tell them apart. You can run both the Safari Technology Preview and regular Safari side by side with no danger of borking anything else on your Mac. Safari Technology Preview doesn't appear to be available yet for iOS or iPadOS, but at least we can mess around on fully released version of... No, that's not quite right. Safari Technology Preview doesn't appear to be available for iOS or iPadOS, but at least we can mess around with it on the fully released macOS Big Sur. The most dramatic change to Safari is that tabs are very different now. Instead of being a row of obvious tabs below the URL bar, it's sort of like they merged the tabs in the URL bar into one thing. For example, if you have podfeed.com and amazon.com open in tabs, whichever one you've selected will show the URL field with a little lock and such, and the other tab will just be a button with part of the name showing. Now, the louder people online are complaining that they can't read the name of the tabs because they get cut off, but it doesn't look like it's that much different than the current Safari. As you add more and more tabs, currently, the names get cut off too. Eventually, in both versions, the tab names disappear, and it's just the favicons, those tiny little icons web developers add to their websites. I honestly don't see why people are up in arms about it. The only thing I did notice is that with a tab selected, you still only see the shortened URL, not the full one, and yet the URL field is huge. So all of the other tabs get pretty narrow, and if they were wider, you'd be able to read the description, but the URL field is taking up all of the space with very little information in it. Now, once you get enough tabs open, that's not why the names are getting cut off. And most people who complain about this have a lot of tabs open. So I don't think it's a big effect of it, but it is kind of weird that they dedicate all this extra space, but they still only show you the little shortened URL. Now, when you flip between tabs, it's a pretty jarring experience because the entire upper part of the browser window will change color, and sometimes quite dramatically. For example, many web pages are a basic white background. But when I switch to my Weather Underground tab, the favorites bar and the new integrated tab URL bar all turned bright blue. Just basically the whole top of it was this flaming blue. Now this is very odd because this color doesn't show anywhere on the current Safari rendering of this website. I can see this dramatic change between tabs leaving people feeling a bit disoriented. So I'm not quite sure where that blue came from. It's very odd. But as you flip between these tabs, you might be kind of disoriented, like I said. Now they've added the concept of tab groups to the new Safari. When I first looked at tab groups, I thought it was just like having a folder in the favorites bar, but it's not really the same thing at all. It is similar to the Safari general preference to open new windows with a folder from your favorites bar, if you've ever done that. When you do that, every new window has all of those tabs already open. With tab groups, though, we now have multiple sets instead of that just one, that you click it and you get them all open at once. Now, since the redesign is all about maximizing the web page real estate, tab groups are created and accessed in the left sidebar. I tested out tab groups, and I think it's kind of slick. I thought about how often I open different web pages within podfeed.com while I'm working. Like I've got the blog post category, each of the podcast pages, and WordPress to manage podfeed.com, and I thought that might make a nice tab group. I opened all of the separate web pages on separate tabs that I normally open by diving in and out of the home page. I used the icon in the toolbar to show the left side panel, and it said at the top, you have 5 tabs open. From there, I could tap the icon with a double rectangle and a plus button to create a tab group. You can also do it by right-clicking on the number of tabs. Now that sounds much more tedious than it was to execute, especially if you already have the tabs open that you want to group. Now that I have a Podfeet tab group, I can click on it and my browser window changes to show all of the tabs open at once. In my opinion, it's kind of like the best of both worlds. You have access to all your lovely favorite sites and tabs, but if you click away, you have just the new tabs you may have opened. I think this would work better for me than a never-ending addition of tabs open in my browser. Now, if it's hard to tell which site is which because your tab group has a ton of tabs in it, if you click on the tab group name, you see a grid of 4 squares and in a little grid as an icon. When you tap on that grid icon, the main part of the page will change to being big thumbnails of each website, and you'll be able to read the site names on each one. And that might be a faster or more visual way to jump to the tab in your tab group you want. Now, I wish you didn't have to first select the tab group in order to be able to tap its grid icon, and I sent that feedback to Apple using the Feedback Assistant app. I thought maybe tab groups would eliminate the need to use the favorites bar, so I tried to convert mine into a tab group. I was surprised to find there was no way to do that. I had to open bookmarks from the left sidebar, which slides away the tab groups, then right-click each favorite to open it in a tab. Then when I had them all open, I was able to flip back to tab groups, and then I was able to make one called favorites out of what I had open. I guess I only needed to do that once, so it's not that big of a deal. It was kind of an annoying process. After using tab groups for a bit, I don't think it would eliminate the desirability of having a favorites bar. One-click access to the few things I use all the time can't be beat by opening a tab group that includes the one thing I need. Apple talked in the WWDC keynote about the need we all have to focus, and they're creating different contexts for that concept with more notification controls. I think you could use tab groups as a way to increase focus. When you're in your waste away time on social media mode, you could select your tab group with Reddit and Facebook and Twitter. When it's time to focus on getting some work done, maybe you have a tab group for serious things like Google Docs and Sheets. With the click of a button, you can completely switch context and have open what you need without a ton of windows open or a ton of tabs open in one window. Ooh, that might actually be a bad thing because right in the middle of working, you can hit your play tab group and goof around. Well, you know what? That's on you if you do that. Now, I'm not sure what happened, but over the last year or two, Apple has started this new concept of making you hover or click to discover things. The worst example of how they're doing this is with reminders. I absolutely hate with a passion how on macOS Big Sur, I have to hover on a reminder and then a downward chevron will appear, and only if I click on that can I complete the task. I'm talking about notifications. There used to be a button right on the notification, and now it's 3 actions to click on it. I'm not sure how hiding things we need to use all the darn time is a good thing. If you get a notification, you've already done the task, or you do the task, why make it harder to acknowledge that? Well, in the Safari Technology Preview, since they eliminated the toolbar, there's no area to put the refresh button and the share icon. Instead, you have to click into the URL field on a 3-dot icon to reveal the refresh and share menu. Now, Command R still works to refresh, thank goodness, but it seems so dumb to have to click twice to get to a button that a lot of people find pretty necessary. If you want a refresh button back, John Siracusa has written a Safari extension to give you back the refresh button, and it will run in the Safari Technology Preview. While running on the future and current Safaris, I didn't see any way... Actually, no. Sorry. I need to change that paragraph. In order to install an extension on Safari Technology Preview, you need to install it on the original Safari, and then it'll show up. All of the extensions that you have installed on the original Safari will show up in the Technology Preview so that you can turn them on. Now, you also don't have a visible X to close tabs, but in this case, this one's not a problem. If you want to close a tab, you're going to have to move your cursor to the tab, right? Well, the instant you do that, if the name is showing, the favicon will change to an X for easy closing. I tested what happens if there are so many tabs open that only the favicon is opening, and I discovered something delightful. When you hover over the favicon, a little mini browser thumbnail pops open so you can easily tell which favicon, a little... When you hover over... When you hover over Word is that. There it is. When you hover over the favicon, a little mini browser thumbnail pops open so you can very easily tell which web page it represents. When the tabs do have names, you get the same effect on hover too. It's really, really slick. So all this whining about not being able to read the names, just hang there for a second and you'll get these beautiful thumbnails. Now, I know this is a preview version of the new Safari browser for macOS Monterey, so I can't give a bottom line about whether it's any good or not. But I was convinced before I got to play with it that I would hate it. But I have to say, it's fresh and new looking, and I rather like it. Save.
So are you using John's? Is that what you were referring by you really like it? Or are you
No, I
talking
was
about the
referring
Safari?
to this tech.
Go ahead.
You want me to answer you, dear?
I think we're out of sync a little.
Like the Safari technology preview.
Did you download John's button or extension?
I did, but I did it before, or I did it earlier, and then I got rid of it, and I can't actually remember whether I put it back in. Alan really wants your attention about something.
Yes, Steve. What is it? I see Steve Allen.
What? All right. This is really weird running this with no sounds. I was messing around in my, what is, Alistair, what is your thing? Why is that looking like that? That doesn't look like that to me, Kevin, or Alistair. Kevin's stuff?
You would have a very narrow Discord window if you're seeing it that way, Alistair.
Yeah.
What's going on
I
there?
don't understand that.
How could you see any
You're blaming
text?
Kevin, but I don't see it anything like that.
Link preview does not work in hyper. That's not important. Link preview is a nice to have. It's not. I just wanted people to have the link so that if they wanted to go get the button, they could get it. That's the reason I put those links.
What's hypercritical?
That's the link that's John Syracuse's website where
the
he
link
posted
that I gave you. Okay.
the extension.
Oh, okay.
But doesn't matter that link preview doesn't work.
I mean, lots of other link previews do work,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's just John's doesn't work. I think it's
Bart's-
probably because, can I tell you why I think it is? It's probably because he's not, that's not a secure site.
Well, Bart's doesn't work either for some reason. Bartificer.net. Bartificer.net
Really?
doesn't have a link preview in Discord either. I don't know why.
Huh, but my stuff does, right?
Oh yeah, all yours does.
Yeah, so Steve can't fix the internet is the answer to your
that's not
question.
that's
Alan.
not something I'm gonna I'm not gonna be changing.
All right. I think Alan gets the impression that we're all powerful. He often asks me to fix things that are out of my control. All right, ready to record. Last week, in part one of my screencasting tips article, I explained to you how to get set up for a successful screen recording session. My goal was to help create an environment that would set you up to be able to work as quickly as possible and create the best possible video that people would actually want to watch. In part two here, I'm going to give you some concrete recording and editing tips to help you make screencasts people will want to watch. None of this advice in this section will be specific to any tools, and like the last part, I think it will be of interest to not only to people who consume. Why am I stumbling so much? Jeez. None of this. Either I wrote badly this week, or I'm just off my game. Can you please cool things off for me? All right. None of the advice in this section will be specific to any tools, and like the last part, I think it'll be of interest to people who only consume and don't create tutorials. At least I hope so. Now, the final part of this mini-series will be next week, and it'll be more specific on how I do things in ScreenFlow with as much generic explanation as I can provide in case you use other tools. Before getting stuck into this, I do want to do another hat tip to Don McAllister and JF Brissett for the tricks they've taught me over the years, many of which are included in this article. One of the most annoying things I see in video tutorials is the cursor jumping around on screen while the instructor is explaining something. Now, I know it's tempting to move the cursor around because you get used to doing it when it does have value, but you have to learn to let go. After you select a menu or point at something you want to explain, let go of the mouse or trackpad. Seriously, let go of it. Sit on your hand if you have to. Just let go. Now, you gain a lot of freedom when you let go of the mouse or trackpad. You can make as many mistakes as you want in talking, and edits will be super easy because the cursor was staying still. Not only is it distracting to have the mouse circling a menu item or just jerking around for no apparent reason, if you say something incorrectly and have to re-record, you'll have no idea where the cursor was when you made the mistake. You'll have to deal with the user seeing the cursor suddenly leap across the screen at an audio cut point. If you do end up with a cut where the cursor is going to jump, which does invariably happen, in ScreenFlow there's a cool trick that I learned from JF. Recordings of the screen hold certain visual items on separate layers, and the cursor is alone on one of those layers. ScreenFlow has an action to actually hide the cursor layer. You can add this action as a gradual effect, which lets you have the cursor gently disappear from the end of one cut and appear gradually at the beginning of the next clip. The viewer will never notice this act of trickery. There's a lot of trickery in here. So if there's an unavoidable jump, see if your screencasting tool supports fading the cursor out and back in. Now, I go back and forth on whether this next tip is good advice or not, so think about whether this would work well for you or not. I like to record screencasts in very short segments, usually no more than 2 to 3 minutes. Now, there's kind of pros and cons to this. The main benefit is that if you bork something up, you can re-record before the tool that you're demonstrating changes in some way. Let's say you're teaching an audio editing tool, and you do a bunch of edits to your sample audio while capturing the screen. It may be very difficult to get back to where you started without re-recording that entire clip. Now, as soon as I've recorded a clip, I review and I edit the clip. I do it right then for the same reason that it's short. If I miss something while recording, I can fix it right away before the tool changes. Now, the downside is that more cuts means more opportunities for that darn cursor to jump around. I've gotten pretty good at looking at the recorded video to kind of triangulate the location of the cursor relative to something on screen, and then placing my cursor pretty close to the same spot, so it's not too obvious. Now, ideally, I'd get smarter and purposely end recording with my cursor in an easy-to-replicate place, but that smartness hasn't materialized just yet, but ever hopeful, right? Now, no matter what software you're using to record your screencasting masterpiece, it will have a countdown timer before it starts to record. If you're really looking to be more efficient, find the preference where you can shorten that time by a lot. In ScreenFlow, I think it starts at 5 seconds, and I turned it down to 2 seconds. Now, it sounds like I need to loosen up my schedule if that 3 seconds is a big deal, but this adds up over time. Think about it. If you record like 50 clips to make a half-hour tutorial, that would be 7.5 minutes you'd save. I've done 75 videos for Screencasts Online. That adds up to over 9 hours of my life I've saved. Plus, I just hate sitting there waiting for it to count down. Now, what you might want to do instead is after the countdown finishes, just wait a heartbeat or two before recording. If you do have a second or more of dead air at the beginning of a recording clip, it gives you the option to use the video for a transition from the previous clip. Maybe you didn't notice something had slightly moved or the thing you had highlighted changed. Now you've got cover to be able to make it less obvious by adding a transition. For the same reason, it's not a bad idea to leave dead air at the end for a future transition need. I don't think I've ever remembered to do that, though, so let me know if you think of a trick to remember. I finish and I go, stop, right away. It's like, oh, I forgot to leave a second there at the end. Now, if you're using a non-destructive editor like ScreenFlow or Screenium, you can chop off these dead air pieces and bring them back by simply dragging either end of the video. There's pretty much no penalty to leaving yourself this little safety net. Now, I can't believe I'm going to admit this next one, but I have to thank my husband Steve for this next tip. I suggest that you have someone you trust watch some of your tutorials and tell you what words or phrases you overuse. Steve often watches my tutorials before I deliver them to Screencasts Online, kind of to do a recheck to look for the bigger mistakes. Early on in my screencasting career, he pointed out that in a single 40-minute video, I said, "I'll go ahead and," about 18 times. He said, "Why didn't you just say I'll? What are all those extra words for? I'll go ahead and do this. I'll go ahead and do that. I'll go ahead and do this." Anyway, it was very hard to stop saying I'll go ahead and, but once he mentioned it, I could not unhear it. After a while, I did beat it out of myself, and I feel like my tutorials are better for it. Then I started noticing how often I would start a sentence with so. I don't know why I do it. I go, so. It gets really old. Once you hear it, man, it sounds terrible. Now, the good news is the bad news is I haven't made myself stop saying it, but luckily it's always followed by a pause, so I can usually edit it out when I catch one. I'm a work in progress like everyone else. Now, I talked in part 1 about setting the screen resolution low and making your backgrounds as non-distracting as possible. There's one more very tough part of a recording on a computer, and that's how to hold the window still. Now, if you can record your entire screencast in one go, more power to you. But it takes me close to a week to record a 30 to 40 minute video tutorial, and things are bound to move around. During that week, I'll remove a connection of my laptop from my dock to tote my laptop around the house. I'll flip back to my main user account, and at the very least, the app I was recording will have changed displays. One of the most distracting things you can do in a screencast is to have the Windows jumping location on screen, even just a little bit. In fact, sometimes just a little bit of a jump is even more annoying, so you need a solution to this. I don't know how to do it on Windows, but on the Mac, there's an app called Moom from Manytricks, which might be able to help. Moom has, many tricks, but one is that you can tell it to memorize the positions of windows on screen. It's beyond the scope of this discussion to give you a full tutorial on how to set up Moom, but it's pretty easy. When you're choosing the window size for Moom to memorize, consider sizing your windows to leave space at the bottom for closed captioning. Even if you won't be adding your own closed captions yourself, if you'll be uploading it to YouTube, it can add them for you. So it's a good idea to make sure no useful screen information will end up under the text. Even with Moom to memorize the main location of your app's windows, invariably there will be some pop-up window that insists on coming up in an unpredictable way. If movement between clips is unavoidable, then you'll need to make a transition to make the cut. Now, I know jump cuts are all the rage on the YouTubes with the kids these days, but that only works when it's a video of a human in real life. With a tutorial of a computer screen, it's just annoying. I'm sure you've seen PowerPoint presentations where people put in transitions where the whole screen turns to sparkles or spirals like in a bad acid trip. Please don't use those. Even if they're in your tool, don't use them. Please pick something more professional. The next worst thing to a swirling acid trip transition is if every single transition is different. Pick something relatively simple and just stick with it. You may want to use 2 different transitions, one to help when things move on screen as we've discussed, and a different transition to signify a big change to what you're talking about. For example, if I'm switching from an iPad view to a Mac view in the same screencast, I'll use a different transition to let people know I'm doing something major that's different here. Now, the final thing I want to bring up is whether or not to show a picture-in-picture talking head in your tutorials. I am of the strong opinion that you should not. I'm about as narcissistic as they come, and while I really think that everyone should know what I look like and admire me, even I know that seeing my face covering part of the video tutorial will add 0 value, and it'll only distract from the tutorial. If you simply cannot deny your desire to be in front of the camera, then do an introduction where it's just you telling the viewers what you're going to teach them. If you want to get fancy, some tools like ScreenFlow will let you have your video at an angle while showing virtual slides, and that can look kind of slick. But you know what? During the tutorial, I implore you to let the content be the star. I hope these tips give you something to think about, and next time we're going to get more specific with some really detailed editing tricks. There we go.
Did you add a chapter mark for this? I didn't see.
Are you looking at my screen?
I see it now. Good.
Oh yeah, look is annoying. I definitely know some tutorials that have done that. There, look, Alan, Moom by Manytricks. The link preview worked.
I think we lost Alan.
Oh, we did? You get mad when we gave him a hard time for thinking that you
maybe he just had to
run the internet. You know what? That last bit. But you know what? During the tutorial, I implore you to let the content be the star. You know what? I'm gonna do that again. I want that punch at the end. We've got time because I'm almost done. Where is it? There it is. it was a great line. Stop it. There you go. But you know what? During the tutorial, I would implore you to let the content be the star. I hope these editing tricks give you something to think about, and next time we'll get a lot more specific with some very detailed editing tricks. All right.
Much better.
I'm not going to do a plug this week. I don't feel like it. No spam.
All right. No spam.
Do you mind?
Frank will be disappointed. Oh, is Frank here?
I haven't seen Frank in a while. More
I don't
punch.
think he is here.
Okay, save. I did save. Okay, I should do a chapter mark, though.
Yes.
This and the preview, and go here, and go here. Why is it not making sound? Come on. Copy link. Copy. It's very disconcerting. All right. We could actually do a chapter count right now, Steve. We could stop Kevin from doing it.
All right. I think I count 4.
I count 4. Alice says, I do like it when people do an on-screen intro so long as it's short and to the point.
How many chapters are there, Podfeet?
There are 4 lights.
Chapters.
Steve, Star Trek to the End. Is that your favorite episode?
It's a pretty good one.
All right.
For TNG, it's in my top 10.
Security bits here. Uh-oh. Why is that not stereo? Wrong keystroke? Does not look like stereo. I think I exported it as mono. Well, let's see how this sounds. Editing tricks. There it is, Jason. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for... I wonder if that's going to matter. I think it's going to matter that I'm bringing in as mono. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Security Bits with Bart Boost Shots. Lovely to see you.
Only if your voices are dramatically different in volume, right?
I don't think so. Have a listen. See you again this weekend, Bart.
Indeed it is. It's weird that it wasn't yesterday. Anyway, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. The listeners have no idea, but
especially because
You're a little bit
the show we recorded
louder,
Friday
but not
isn't
much.
out yet. Yeah. I mean, it'll still go through the same algorithm. I don't know that it'll make it any harder or easier because I think I exported as a mono M4A anyway.
Will leveling help that?
Yeah, that's what I was just talking about.
remember to stay patched so you stay secure.
You got quiet at the end there. All right, cut that. That was a mixture. Let me just look at this and make sure it looks like somebody's talking at all times. I'm sorry. Oh, shoot. A planet. I think it was a, shoot, I'm going to mess it up. Must be a star. Circling around. That's a mistake. Oh, you're going to kill me. A star. Hang on. I think it was a, shoot, I'm going to mess it up. Must be a star. Circling around.
Oh, you're talking about Andrea Ghez.
Yeah. I'm going to fix that. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Talking about Andrea Ghez and the
discovering the supermassive black hole at the center of our galaxy.
Yeah. Shoot, I'm going to mess it up. Must be a star. Circling. Yeah, I think I can cut it right there. Yeah. See if I can fix this. Split. I think I suddenly went, wait, was it a planet circling around the... And I was like, no, not a planet. That would be stupid. It's got to be a star. A star circling around this...
Ooh, you nailed that.
That was a good cut. I didn't sound like much.
Nice job.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. Great name for a podcast on time management. You know what that's from, right? Mr. Jenks?
I'm sure he does.
Do you know, Steve?
Yes.
What is it from?
Doctor Who.
There you go.
Patched, so you stay secure.
He got real quiet at the end. All right. Well, I only had 3 segments, but an hour and 11 minutes. All right. I'm going to bring us home here. Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Don't forget to send in your dumb questions. When is the last time we've had a good dumb question? These dumb questions are supposed to be questions you have that you think everybody else probably already knows the answer, but you don't know the answer to it. I love those questions. Don't make them real hard questions. Make them easy enough for me to be able to answer. Anyway, you can send in your dumb questions, your Everything is Fiddly recordings, comments, and suggestions by emailing me at allison@podfeet.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at podfeet. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. You want to become a patron of the Podfeet podcast? Where do you go? podfeet.com/Patreon. You want to do a one-time donation to PayPal? podfeet.com/PayPal. Want to join the discussion with other NosillaCastaways? We have a lot of fun over on Facebook at podfeet.com/Facebook and a lot of fun over at Slack at podfeet.com/Slack. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. How do I support the show? Nobody knows. Bye, John. Glad we got done early for you.
I think Bodhi joined us.
Bodhi?
Hi, Bodhi.
Hey, Bodhi. Oh, man, we're just finishing.
Yeah. Good
Did
timing.
you guys listen to us talking to Bodhi about Steve and I were on, had Chit Chat Across the Pond and Bodhi on his show, Kilowatt, talking about how much the things we don't like about our cars. This is the Bodhi. Oh, you did a
crossover.
Yeah.
You both played that, right?
Okay, I'm going to listen to this ending here. Listening and stay subscribed. That's a little late. That looks good. All right. That was so fun.
Yeah. I want to hear you guys do that again.
What's that?
I want you to do that again.
Do what again?
Have another episode with Bodhi.
Okay. Actually, we're going to have Bodhi on Chit Chat Across the Pond when I can schedule him.
Good. Look forward to it.
I think that would be fun. He doesn't know that yet, but
I think he does now. He says he's in.
all right, good. All right, well, I think we are done. I don't have anything else to say.
Amazing.
We're going to let the class out early at 5:42 p.m.
Yep.
All right, bye, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Here, goodbye.
Taking us out.